Hello. For today's bead making demo, we are going to do dragon scales or python scales, depending on how you see them. This is a tutorial that I took right off of Lampwork Etc. If you go to Lampwork Etc. and type in a search for dragon scale beads, you'll come up with an article written by a woman named Amber, also goes by Naos. I will put a link to her website in the show notes. I wrote her and she gave me permission to do a video of her tutorial, so all's good. You should experiment with different materials. I'm using different materials than she listed on her tutorial just because I wanted to change it up and I had to use what I already owned. So today I'm going to make this bead. So I'm using the materials you'll need to make this is copper green. That's what I'm using as the bead base. And I'm using light ivory instead of dark ivory. It's pretty much the same thing, it's just a little bit lighter in color. And you'll also need a third of a sheet of silver leaf. I guess this is maybe a silver foil. Anyway, the thin one. And this is a graphite pad. And what I made the scales out of is raku frit. And since I don't have any raku or iris orange already made into pre-bought stringers, I have some chunks, so I will be pulling these chunks of iris orange, also known as raku frit. I'll pull that into a stringer and use that on this bead. So let me put the filter on and spark the torch up and let's make this bead. Okay, the first thing I'm going to want to do after getting the torch going is pull this out into a stringer. I'm going to melt it in the middle. This is the way I like to use my rods to make stringers. I used to pull them out with a pair of pliers off the end, pair of tweezers off the end, and I don't know. I've just completely switched over to this. I melt the center of a rod, squeeze it together to make a disc, and depending on how much glass I want to use, that dictates how big I make that disc. I want it to be kind of oblong, like this. Oops. Okay. Heat it up evenly. Pull it out of the flame. Wait for 4 seconds. 1, 2, 3, 4. And then I'm rotating the rod at the same rate with both hands. I'm not putting any twist into it. This is in real time, so I'm just pulling it out very, very slowly. And you can see it start to go white in the center. And now I'm going to quit rotating and I'm just going to pull it out. And here we go. Just like that. That gives me plenty to work with. And now I'm just going to cut off the end. The reason I want to do this first is I'm going to need to handle this rod with my fingertips, and so I want to give it a chance to cool down. Set that off to the side. Now I take my iris orange frit, my raku frit, and I have this big chunky marble mold. You can use graphite pad, anything will work. Part of a can. Anyway, I just put a little bit in one of the pockets, and I'm taking a spare clear rod that I have. If I ever get a batch of clear that has some scratched up rods or something, I set those aside and I use them for this kind of stuff. Okay, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to heat up the tip of the clear. Want the end to get tacky, and then I'm going to touch it down onto a piece of the frit. Let that get soft and molten. Pick up another piece. Heat that in. Now that I've got a bigger gather on the end, I can pick up a couple of pieces. Slowly heat those up. Pull it out of the flame. I'm just melting it in. And I'll pick up the last couple of pieces. That should give me plenty of raku frit to work with for this bead. Now for this I am going to use my pliers to pull out a small stringer. Heat the tips up a little bit. I don't want to shock the glass as I grab it. Okay. Same thing, I heat it up. I wait 3 or 4 seconds. Then I just grab onto it with my pliers. Pull myself out a stringer. Get this out here where we can see it. Okay. There I have a stringer. I'm just going to cut this end piece off. And I'll put that back in the can as soon as it cools down. Put it back in the jar. It's still good. There, now I have a nice pencil. Now I'm going to go back this. Yeah, this is cool to the touch now. I've got a little bit of water back here. And I'm going to just get the edge of this stringer damp. Better turn this off. I just lay this along the edge and roll it up. Oops, up here. Okay, the way Naos does hers, the way the tutorial is written, you don't want to make a typical silvered stringer. Normally you would do something like this, it'd melt it completely into the stringer. All we want to do is heat it up enough to get the silver to tighten up a little bit. I'm not melting it in, I'm just later. Sucks up to the stringer a little bit better. There. Out of focus. There we go. Still, just a foil wrapped stringer. Okay, let's go ahead and make our bead. I'm going to heat up add a little more heat to this. There we go. I'm making your standard donut shaped bead, but you can make this in any shape you want. Barrel shape, bicone, cylinder. Okay. Melt that into shape. Has to have your basic disc. Okay, the first thing I'm going to do is work farther out in the flame, and I'm going to add dots around the center line. Probably as many as I can get on there. I'm not really going to count, I'm just going to space them until I run out of room. I want to heat up this silvered stringer as little as possible, just enough to get the end hot, and I place it, and then I cut it. Place it up through the flame and cut it. Okay, I've got dots placed around. Now I'm going to place dots along the side, in between the other two. So, same thing, place, cut. I'm going to go a little faster this time. We're using the ivories because they spread real well. This is the bottom of a stack of dots. We're going to put one more. We're going to put the raku frit on top of this. Okay, smooth those out just a little bit. See, it took nearly that whole rod, that whole sheet. Okay, I just have stacked dots, spiky little bead. I'm going to go back, and I'm not going to melt these in. Preheat my bead again a little bit, and then I am going to take this raku frit stringer that I just made, and I'm going to put a dot right on top of each one of these. I don't want to push it down around the dot. I just want to set it right on the top. Go around the side. Okay. Now the other side. Now I have a very spiky bead. And that's exactly what I want. Dot on top of a dot. Now I melt it in. I want all of these dots to collapse at about the same rate. So I'm going to move it back and forth, rotate it in and out of the flame. Even heat, that's the key here, even heat. Raku frit likes to be, here let me take it out of the flame, they're just small bumpy, it's a small bumpy bead now. The raku, iris orange frit, likes to be gotten really hot and shocked into cooled really quickly. That's what I mean by shocked. Since I don't want to change the shape of the bead, I'm not going to roll it on a cold marver, but I am going to get it into the shape I want. Go back, heat it up, and then I'm going to blow on it. That will put cool air across the top of the glass and hopefully bring some of that oil slick, psychedelic kind of colors out of it. Okay, so it's hot. Let me try it. There we go. Some nice blues. Turn this overhead light off and we'll take a look at it, and then I'll put this in the kiln. go. And there is my take on dragon scale bead. Thank you very much, and I will talk to you later.